Okay, everybody, I want you to go lock all your doors, check your closets, check under your beds, because we're talking about monsters today. I'm Beyond the Borderline with your hosts, Connor, Cam, Phil, and Ryan.
All right. How's it going, everybody? Hope you're doing well. So, like Connor said, we'll be talking about monsters or cryptids, rather, cryptozoological creatures. So,
Yeah,
basically, these kind of legends and urban legends and myths about strange creatures that may or may not wander the earth. Um, werewolves, vampires, Loch Ness monster, Bigfoot, all these things. So we'll just go through, our favorite ones, tell you a little bit about the lore and the mysteries behind them, and then just have a discussion on whether or not any of these things could actually exist or if it's all just made up. So I think we're giving the floor over to Ryan to start. So why don't you go ahead there, bud?
Yeah. All right. The first cryptid I want to talk about today is the Mongolian death worm. It's a pretty famous cryptid, although I didn't really know much about it until really today. Pretty much today. But I've done it's a good amount of research on it. But basically, as the story goes, the Mongolian death worm, amongst those that live in the Gobi Desert, which shares borders on China and Mongolia, the locals of the Gobi Desert, for the most part, describe the Mongolian death worm as this large, sausage-looking worm with no eyes, legs, or arms. Really, just this kind of like this open mouth. But what makes it so scary is that it has the ability to spray poison that can instantly kill a man, and its skin is so poisonous that if you touch it, it can instantly kill you. Many locals in Mongolia report having seen the Mongolian death worm. They say you can tell it's they say you can tell it's coming, and Cam's Dune spidey senses might be tingling a little bit here. They say you can tell it's coming by noticing waves under the sand. It's so large that it can cause waves under the sand.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it's
the
as
guy
large
that
as
the author of Dune was almost certainly inspired by them, because like
probably.
the first report of them was from what, like the 1880s or something.
Yeah. So they're definitely not as they're definitely not described to be as large as the worms we find in Dune. Not even close, but from the basic description, they sound to be quite large. But what's interesting is in the 1920s, a guy named Roy Andrews did an expedition in the Gobi Desert to try and find the Mongolian death worm, but he never ended up finding it. He spoke to many locals who said that they had seen it many times, and he details this in his book called The Trail of Ancient Man. He spoke to many locals there on his quest to discover the Mongolian death worm, but unfortunately he wasn't successful in finding it. He did, however, speak with the Mongolian prime minister at the time, and at the time the Mongolian prime minister said that he too had seen it and believed to it, or not seen it, but believed it to be real, and described it as, sausage-looking, very large, very dangerous, very poisonous. And then more recently, a cryptozoologist by the name of Ivan Mackerel, I think I'm pronouncing that right, did 3 different expeditions in the Gobi Desert, 2 in the 90s, and then his most recent one was in the early 2000s. In his last expedition, a monk in the Gobi Desert told him to go home, as the monk believed his life was in danger from the Mongolian death worm. However, Ivan believed the Mongolian death worm to be much smaller than what the locals purported it to be. He believed the Mongolian death worm to be red, have sort of like a red pigment on its on the color of its skin, only to be about 0.5 to 1 meter in length, and no wider than the width of the average human arm. However, he did agree with the claims of it having incredibly toxic skin and poisonous skin, but he attributed that to the fact that that Mongolian death worms typically ingest goyo plants, which is a native plant to the Gobi Desert that is quite poisonous.
Wait, so sorry, did this guy actually find one or find what he thought was one? Or are you just saying that he's like
So what I'm
speculating?
getting at here, so the monk, going back to the monk told him to go home because he believed that his life was in danger. That same night, Ivan Merkel had horrible dreams about the worm. He woke up in the middle of the night and his back was covered in boils that looked to have been like sucked. So from then he just went home and he stopped his search into the Mongolian death worm. Right. So obviously there's a lot of corroboration amongst the locals of the Gobi Desert and Mongolians about the Mongolian death worm, and the reason it was so supported back in the early 20th century is because the first ever dinosaur eggs were actually discovered in the Gobi Desert, so it kind of lended a lot of credibility to the idea that maybe there is some monstrous creature that's living in this desert, because if we could find dinosaur eggs here, maybe we could find other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool. And like, I guess there's not been like that area was under Soviet control for so long. So it's not like anyone could get in there
too, right?
Yeah. And now it's like Chinese control basically. So we're not going to get anyone in there from the West anytime soon, which kind of sucks. But I also am reading here that it can generate, it's said to be able to generate massive blasts of electricity.
Yep.
That would be crazy.
Ivan Merkel details that as well when he did his expeditions. He believed that they had the ability to send out large shocks of electricity to its prey. It's said that the Mongolian death worm primarily preys on camels, but whenever camels aren't present, it'll likely prey on humans and rodents and things of that nature.
I would love for this thing to exist because it's literally straight out of Dune. Mm-hmm. And I obviously mentioned Dune in like every episode. So like, this is great. This is awesome.
But yeah, I don't know what you guys think. I don't know if you guys think that there's any possibility that this thing is real. I myself think, maybe there is. I agree more with, the more recent findings of Ivan Merkel. Maybe there was this smaller worm that's quite poisonous. I think that's more plausible than a giant sandworm that's swimming underneath the sand and swallowing people and camels up.
Yeah, it's probably more plausible. And like, apparently, what does it say here? Apparently experts are saying that like the actual environment of the Gobi Desert is too hot for most like worm-like creatures to actually exist. But I guess it's possible. Obviously, the stuff about it being like poisonous and electric and all these crazy weapons that it has are probably not true.
Well, poisonous skin through eating a poisonous
it's possible.
That's possible.
Yeah. But like able to like,
spit acid
and like send out electrical attacks.
It's like a poisonous electrical eel.
It sounds like a Pokemon. It literally sounds like a Pokemon.
The poisonous skin thing is definitely plausible because there's a lot of frogs that are like that, right?
Yeah, but then mixed with a Jolteon.
Yeah, mixed with a Jolteon, yeah.
Yeah, but no, I it's definitely possible that there's something, because that whole area, like you said, is kind of unexplored, which is going to be probably a common theme as we talk more about these creatures. There's like the Yeti in the Himalayas, and then other stuff in like the jungles of Vietnam. Like there's a lot of places that we haven't really explored at all. Yeah. So there's certainly new species to be discovered, but
one of the biggest areas.
Also, these places are also incredible for like hiding and stuff like that too, right? Like these things are so, if there's so few of them, and like if they don't, like, not that they don't want to be found or whatever, but if they're like a reclusive animal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the biggest places on the earth that hasn't been explored is the Mariana Trench, and there's a lot of different tall tales of cryptids surviving and living down there, right?
True. Oh, well then I think this is a good segue then, because didn't you want to talk about the Megalodon a little bit?
Yeah, so I guess I can talk about the Megalodon now.
Unless someone else wants to go first, but I don't know. Does anyone? We can just go straight into it.
Yeah, I would just like to preface that just by saying the megalodon is technically a cryptid, but it's to be noted that a shark of that similar size did actually exist way back when.
Yeah.
Whether it is still alive today in its original species, it's up for debate. So
Yeah.
I'll let
that is
you
what
guys
makes
get
it a
over that.
cryptid, right? Is
I
does
think
exist today.
I think we can throw more like credibility to this as being real as well, because like, you know,
Mhm.
however many years ago we didn't know the giants. We thought giant squid were like cryptids, but now we know that they're actually like real.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
one might be the most credible.
So yeah, obviously most of you who are listening know what I've at least heard of the megalodon, right? You know, the 50-foot great white shark. But you know, there's a lot of, you know, conspiracy around whether or not, you know, like where do they go? Because there's so few bones and fossils of the megalodon to this day that have been found, right? So it lends to the idea that maybe they're still around hiding somewhere. And a lot of people like to point towards the Mariana Trench because it's so vast and so dark and so deep that we really don't know what's down there. And for a long time, I did believe that the megalodon was still around because I spent a lot of time watching. There's a lot of underwater sea cameras that, you know, different organizations like to place around the world, you know, to get footage of what's going down in the depths of the sea. And a video I watched, it was a while ago. I was trying to find it. I might be able to try if I look a little bit harder.
I think I know the one you mean, where it's like they can only see like part of the flank of it, kind of, the shark.
Yeah, you see this really large shark-like creature swim across the camera, pan across the camera screen. And originally, a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's probably just a whale shark or it's just a whale," but you do get a brief look at the fin of this creature, and it aligns more along the lines of something like a great white shark, right? So I don't know if this has been debunked since, but that was one of the largest pieces of evidence people use when talking about megalodon's existence to this day.
Yeah, because I guess they, with all kind of videos like that, I guess the general rule is try to extrapolate the size of the creature based on surrounding objects.
Yeah, exactly.
So they couldn't obviously. I know the exact video you're talking about, I think, and they couldn't see the entire thing. Like the entire creature didn't come into frame, but it was part of it, and based on like the rocks or whatever was surrounding it, and also like the camera itself, they could kind of estimate the size, which was,
I think he was doing something like over 40 feet.
Yeah, exactly. Which, if that was a great white, would be a gigantic.
Yeah, I'm
white.
pretty sure the biggest great white in recorded history was back in the 1800s. Don't quote me on this because I'm pretty sure I got this from Wikipedia, but I'm pretty sure it was about 30 feet. Whereas the average great white shark is usually no bigger than 20.
Yeah, 36 feet, according to the Guinness Book of World Records.
That's fucking massive.
And that was in the 1870s. Yeah, that is huge, man.
Huge. Like that's the size, like orcas are that size, killer whales.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, like have you ever seen the pictures of like a fully constructed megalodon jaw?
Yeah,
and it's like
it can completely swallow the entirety of a great white shark.
It can swallow a human being standing whole. Like the tooth is like
they
the
can
size
swallow
of a
bus, I think.
Yeah, it's quite massive.
Damn. Yeah, the teeth are like 7 inches long. Like that's
I'm just gonna say I think anything in the water is plausible just because there's so little of it that's been explored and it's so hard to explore because literally, like theoretically, and like especially if these creatures are living at such like deep depths, I don't know, of the ocean, they can pretty much go into any ocean and survive at the bottom of any ocean.
Well, yeah, that's what some people don't, may not understand is, if you look at exploration, in space versus going underwater, going to space is actually much easier than doing a large deep sea expedition because in space, there's nothing to really worry about beyond just the fact that it's an empty void. It's empty. You're not gonna. There's less things to worry about because when you're going deep down under the sea, you got to worry about water, you got to worry about pressure. There's just so many more variables.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the whole
Oxygen.
idea. Well, it's a real phenomenon. I believe it's called abyssal gigantism, where the further you go down in depth, the bigger the animals get. And now I think that's because a lack of competition. And it just so happens that there becomes less environmental factors that would prohibit from them getting that large. So like,
Yeah, but also there's the question of and like this would come into the discussion if we talked about like the Loch Ness monster and stuff too, but some doubt on the existence of megalodon and like other gigantic aquatic monsters is that those fuckers need a lot of calories.
Yeah, like what are they
Right?
eating down there? If they do?
So I mean, so maybe there's tons of giant creatures down there and they're preying on those, but you know, there needs to be a stable
Or they
food
go,
source for these
So
creatures. Like
here's
they're
why.
consuming thousands and thousands of
Or they-
calories a day.
Here's
but they
why I
could
think
also,
it's
they
not
could
that
also, they
large
could also
creatures
like go high. They could also like go up into the lower, like the lower pressure, or the lower pressure areas where whales and other large.
Yeah, but you would
creatures
think
that
we would have
do know
seen more
exist.
evidence of them then, you know.
Well, so here's my thing. If there really are large creatures down there, the reason why I don't think the megalodon exists to this day, like it probably existed back, thousands of years ago.
Like it did for sure.
It did, yes, it definitely did. But why I don't think large creatures of that size exist to this right now is take a look at giant squids, right? They're cannibals. Well, why are they cannibals? If they can get other large food sources or food sources that can satisfy their diet, why would they eat each other?
Yeah.
Do they just like the taste of each other? Maybe.
Well,
But
I
if there
that-
was a wide
yeah.
variety of large creatures that they could pick from. I think
maybe
more
giant
often than not,
squids
they
are
wouldn't
just
attack each other.
psychopaths.
Well, and that could be adding to Cam's point about, well, they need X, Y, and Z to survive. Well,
Mhm.
if they eat themselves, I mean, then they're just gonna dwindle, and then maybe
Yeah.
that's why there are none. You know?
Maybe giant squids are just suicidal as a species.
I know.
No. Okay, I'm looking at this story here from May of last year called "Is That a Megalodon? Massive Shark Caught on Camera Off New England Coast." This is in like Massachusetts. It's got 37 million views on TikTok. And apparently, well, based on the video, people say it ranges between 30 and over 80 feet long. So huge range there. If it is anything over like 45, 50, then maybe there's some truth to that. Yeah, I'm watching it and the thing is huge, dude.
Do you get a good view of it?
Kind of, yeah. But also it couldn't be, it could just be like, maybe there's just some great white sharks that just become ginormous, you know?
Absolute gluttons.
Just because the biggest one we've seen, yeah, they're just fat boys. But just because the biggest one we've seen is 36 feet, you know, that was
If you wanna see
150
that-
years ago.
If you want to see that video, DM us on Instagram and we'll share the link.
Yeah, sure.
I also I don't know if this is I don't know if this is just crocodiles and alligators, but do sharks just not stop growing too, like sharks, like crocodiles and alligators, or is that just crocodiles and alligators? I can't remember if sharks should.
No, they had a full size and stop usually.
Yeah, because when it comes to like crocodiles and alligators, they will keep growing until they die.
Yeah. The other interesting evidence is sometimes when whale carcasses wash ashore and they're just like gigantic bites taken out of them. And people are like, damn, it looks
That
like
might
something
not
out
be
of
one-
Jurassic World.
That might not be one singular bite though, right? That might be a series.
Yeah,
of-
no, I know. I'm just saying it's cool. Like,
A prop would be able to do that, eh? Like a prop from like a big like cargo ship wouldn't be able to take a giant gouge out of it.
yeah, but like you'd be able to tell the difference between like a bite.
Yeah, that
and
would
a-
probably be a little bit like either the cargo ship would just straight up rip it in half, or it would be like a lot more blunt and not as angular.
Yeah, fair. Cool. Well, what's the next cryptid on the docket?
Who wants to go? Phil?
I can go.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for this one.
Take it away.
All right. So,
Take it away, Aaron.
all right. Make sure you're sitting down.
That's a Harry Potter reference, by the way.
Oh, I got it, Kim. I was thinking.
Oh boy, I did not. I need to
Okay.
brush up.
Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yes. So I'll preface this by saying, if you've seen Scooby-Doo before, you've probably heard of this cryptid.
Oh, here we go. Yep.
I'll get into puns later, but probably the most goated cryptid of all time, the chupacabra.
El Chupacabra.
Yes. So basically, the sightings range. Well, they start in, like, the first kind of reported sightings start in the 70s in Puerto Rico,
Okay.
also in the Americas and Latin America too. So this creature, the chupacabra, or chupacabra with an S at the end, I don't know why, weird translation. But translated from Spanish, it means goat sucker. Yeah.
It sounds much more terrifying in Spanish.
Yes, it does. And so basically, it's described as a dog-like creature that consumes livestock blood.
Nice.
So essentially what happens is, I don't think there's been very many reported attacks on humans, but it's been said that it just devastates farm stock. So your whole herd would just be like wrecked by this supposed creature that is incredibly elusive and just is never been able to be captured. So it takes many different forms on Google. Most notably, it is a kind of a hairless dog-like creature with almost black skin. Some have spines on over its spine, and some do not.
Yeah.
And
Like
yeah,
spikes, you mean?
There's so many like different
Spikes.
interpretations of them. I'm looking at Google Images and like one of them looks like this
What
lizard
if it's
just-
thing, and one of them.
What if it's just a dog?
Yeah.
No,
like
what
it
I was
could
gonna
be.
say is, what if the chupacabra is just this rabid capybara?
I
No,
don't
it's
know.
it's not a capybara.
Well, basically, you have to.
They're not- they don't-
listen- Yeah, I'm gonna go into like why it's so feared.
But dude, wait,
it's-
can we just, before we go into why it's
Sure.
scared, can we just talk about that it's probably just a rabid dog? Because many breeds of dog, their skin is actually black. So what happens if it's just a dog that lost its skin or it lost its hair?
Well, even if that was correct, you wouldn't. I don't think rabid dogs suck all of the blood out of things
Well,
and leave
but they
3
actually-
distinct puncture marks on their neck. I don't
Yeah.
know, dude.
That's a strange dog.
Yeah, all right,
That's
yeah,
a very strange dog.
I didn't know that.
It kind of, it's strangely, like, this isn't related in its lore, but it kind of, it brings me back to, have you guys heard of the Egyptian god Anubis?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It looks really similar to Anubis.
Yeah, that
and
that
it's like,
really angular hound-like face.
yeah. And like, it kind of, you could tie them between like, kind of like being Judgment Day or like the Angel of Death or something, just like, because essentially Anubis is, I think he is kind of the guardian between the afterlife and before that.
More or less.
So it's kind of like, yeah, just like what's going on. But it's like, it takes many different forms. There are many different interpretations all over a variety of cultures. And I mean, somehow it's made its way to a kid show, dude.
Yeah.
I don't
Although
know
the chupacabra in Scooby-Doo was like this gigantic like Bigfoot creature. And so
I know.
like, do you remember that? It like came out of
Yeah.
the trees and it was like this hulking fucking ape thing. And I was like, I thought it was that for the longest time. And then you see these pictures on Google Images of what they're supposed to look like. And it's like, what the fuck is that? It's like a diseased little dog.
My interpretation. I was just gonna say my interpretation of the chupacabra. It seems kind of like a Latin cultural take on hellhounds.
Almost. Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Black skin, spine, like spiky back, blood sucking, elusive. In Christian lore, hellhounds are often described as being invisible almost.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's another thing we gotta discuss one time is like Christian lore, like the kind of like Mortal Instruments type stuff where there's like the archangels and angels and stuff. Like, there's so many cool things like supernatural. There's so many cool like interpretations of Christian lore.
But back to the chupacabra.
Yeah.
Man, I'm pretty like rabid animals act in really weird ways. So I wouldn't be too shocked if it was just literally a rabid dog. Like maybe the blood sucking comes from the dog just like bit a goat in the neck, and then the goat was like on an angle or something like that, and then the blood just drained out of the animal, out of the goat.
Yeah. Well, it said like multiple. The first story was in 1995. I think Phil said that already, but it was like multiple goats, all drained of blood.
Like how drained were they? Like
all of it.
So basically, they looked like a husk almost.
Pretty much. Just like
I don't think a fucking rabid dog's doing that.
I don't know. I just think it's just like so cool to me. Like, yeah, it has so many different forms. It was originally these, I guess, like finding all of these dead animals. It was kind of equated at first before they had, not to say a better idea of what was happening, but before they knew any more information, that it was part of a satanic ritual where they would be using the blood for X, Y, and Z.
And the fact that it's tied with goats just lends more credibility to that this might be like something that's been spoken to in Christian lore.
Yeah, it's like, why goats? Because we know in lots of different lore that goats are sacrificed for satanic rituals, and it said that
not just satanic ritual though.
Yeah, but like Satan,
Judaism, they do it sometimes. Christianity, they do it.
Yeah. It's interesting how the satanic and like the devilish lore seems to take the deity of a goat. It's just interesting.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure what the origin for that is, because what is it? It's not Beelzebub. It's one of those like princes of hell is supposed to have the head of a goat.
I don't know why Satan is often tied to like goat legs and stuff like that. I don't know the history.
Yeah, well, like it might have something to do with the fact that like satyrs and fawns are like we're seen as like pagan, like symbols of paganism.
Sure.
And so the goat legs coming from kind of the Christian disdain for Greek and Roman and other pagan traditions. But yeah, I don't know. I love goats. They're so cute as fuck.
Yeah, but like goat sacrifice was used in like when like in the story of like the Bible, when the Jews were fleeing from Egypt, right? They would use the blood of a goat to signify that they were like a Jewish household.
Oh, you mean for Passover?
Yeah, and then like it was used like multiple times in the Bible.
Now that's a cool story to talk about.
And stuff like that as well.
Yeah, the 10 plagues of Egypt. Dude, okay, we're definitely doing a Christian lore episode now. There's cool. So many cool things. But yeah, it's weird because the chupacabra, it's kind of like it has elements of vampirism as well, Yeah. Which is interesting. Like I wonder where that whole idea originated from, that there's creatures out there that suck blood. Like what is that?
And like all seem to gain like incredible power from it.
Yeah, like I mean obviously it's been a tradition for a while and tons of cultures that blood is like important, obviously, because without it you are dead.
Oh, but one thing I want to touch on just before we go to the next cryptid, kind of on this vampiric pledge we're taking. Basically,
Oh, Phil, just we're gonna wrap it up in a couple minutes, by the way. But yeah, keep going.
okay. So this brings me back the Chupacabra to one of my favorite movies of all time, Vampire Untold with Luke Evans.
Oh, Dracula
cool.
Untold. Dracula.
Dracula Untold.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yes.
Sick movie.
Where basically, to break it down, so and so, he's basically going to lose this war. He's having to conscript all of his young boys in his ranks to said army to fight a war, and he's like, "Nah, dude, I don't want that." So he
Mhm.
goes to this mystical cave where there's said to be this creature that is a vampire.
It's like the unseen elder.
Yes. And he's like they all like just don't go to the cave, but they're like, okay, we're just gonna go. Or he's like desperate and he's like heard this lore about this creature that has like drinks blood and
Abilities.
stuff, crazy abilities. So what
Yeah.
happens is he finds him, whatever. And the curse about it is that basically he drinks this creature's blood and then he has 3 days. And if he does not consume blood, he goes back to normal. So for 3 days, he has this unbelievable power where he can see in the dark, he can turn into bats, he can just like shred people up.
Yeah.
But finally, I won't spoil it for you, but
Well, I actually forget what happens at the end.
Oh, it's pretty
Dracula
awesome.
Untold.
Can you spoil
Definitely
it?
check it out.
All right, spoiler alert. Turn your. This is the one time we actually want you to not listen
yes.
to us.
I don't think anyone
wanna be
cares, so.
spoiled.
So,
Yeah, no one's watching
so
Dracula
basically,
Untold.
But this movie came out like 8 years ago.
I know. So basically, he does succumb to the insatiable need for human blood, and he tries to save his wife,
Yeah,
who
Oh
died,
yeah, right.
who fell out of a mountain,
Right. I remember that.
and basically he's like,
You're not
"Fuck
coming
it."
back from that.
No, but yeah, he just uses this ability, and he's now plagued with this curse.
Yeah, he becomes the vampire.
He becomes the thing that he hates, essentially.
Yeah. I loved that rendition of Dracula because it was kind of like it made him a tragic figure, like Anakin Skywalker is my favorite character from Star Wars. Obviously, Ryan would agree because of the tragic hero aspect, which I think is the most powerful type of character.
Well,
which makes him better than Luke Skywalker, because Luke was just a classic hero's journey, but
Right.
Anakin is the tragic, the fallen angel, right? Which is why I loved that version of Dracula, because it like actually made you sympathize with him, right?
It's a really different version of Dracula too, because the original version of Dracula is a man who made a deal with the devil, right? Like the actual devil, and it was the devil who granted him the power of vampirism.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, we should probably wrap it
go-
up. But we will be discussing more cryptids in the next episode because there are a
If you
ton of
guys want
them.
to hear Cam and I's cryptid stories, I guess,
Yeah.
tune in for next episode on Friday.
Yeah, we got a ton more. So stay tuned. I've got a couple good ones up my sleeve, and Connor does too, I bet. So
There you go. Yeah. So hit the bell, comment, have
Follow.
a great week. Follow as well if you're not already. Have a great week. You guys will hear us on Friday. Have a good one. Take care. Brush your hair.